Welcome, brothers and sisters. Today, I'd like to talk about free speech again. This is a long read, but I came across this article on Spiked. So you can go out there and read it if you like. It was written by Tom Slater and it's dated 29th of November, so it's pretty current. And the title is PC Police: How Britain Fell to the New Censorship. And censorship is one of my favorite topics to talk about because I am a really big believer in free speech. If you don't have free speech, you don't have anything. And really, in my view, all of our rights stem from free speech and are related somehow. And if you don't have free speech, you really don't have anything. So with that, let's see what's going on in Britain. So the headline, PC Police: How Britain Fell to the New Censorship. The police the police turning up at someone's door over a tweet has become alarmingly mundane in Britain. So for my American audience, you may not know it, but the police can actually be called if you send mean tweets in Britain. Now, I know people might disagree about what exactly they're coming for, but if anybody doesn't like one of your tweets, the police may get a call. The slow corrosion of our rights, the steady stream of stories about arrests over memes and misgenderings has numbed us to the authoritarianism of it all. But there is something about the Allison Pearson scandal that made the slowly boiling frog realize just how hot it is. So I'm sure we're going to get into Allison Pearson, but for people who don't know, the police came to her door one day for a tweet that was over a year old that she deleted, and they wouldn't even tell her what tweet it was, and they decided that this was worth investigating. Well, unfortunately for the police, Alison Pearson just happened to be a reporter for a major newspaper in the UK. So this also hit at freedom of the press. And the paper did not look kindly on it, and the other editors at the paper wrote lots of stories about it. And so that's why we're hearing about it. But and again, that's also why I'm talking about it, because a regular person doesn't have Allison Pearson's platform. A regular person just wants to live their life and go on about their business and raise their family and go to work and go on holiday every once in a while. So they just want this all to go away. And so they'll plead guilty and do whatever, community service, and just make this go away. Well, Allison decided to make a big fuss about it, and really that brought out the absurdity. So let's see what happened to Allison. Let's see what we got here. Earlier this month, news broke that Pearson, a columnist for the center-right Daily Telegraph, had been visited by Essex police on Remembrance Sunday. Remembrance Sunday is where they're remembering all the veterans of like World War I and other wars who died, for freedom. So that's kind of the irony of all of this. So on Remembrance Sunday, the police came and chapped her door. Her crime: a year-old post on X. Two police officers knocked on her door and informed her she was being investigated for inciting racial hatred and invited her to attend a voluntary interview. More chillingly, they didn't disclose which tweet it was or who her accuser was. Now, luckily in America, you have a right to know what you're being accused of, and you have a right to face your accuser in court, I believe. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. So I'm just, these are just what I believe. But it looks like that's not the case in Britain, or it appears not to be so, based on this story. And she was invited to a voluntary interview. I think most American solicitors would tell you don't talk to the police without your solicitor, and I think that's probably good advice. I don't know if you can do that in the UK. Maybe someone will tell me in the comments. Oh, and if you like this kind of commentary, please like and subscribe. If you don't like it, hey, like and subscribe if it's entertaining, and leave me comments if I get anything wrong. Thankfully, common sense has now finally prevailed. Essex police announced late last week that they enclosed the investigation, following advice from the Crown Prosecution Service. Still, Pearson's brush with England's pound shop Stasi has quite rightly made headlines, not just in Britain, but all over the world. And again, that's why I'm talking about it. A regular person, you would never know that this happened, and everyone just quietly puts up with it, with the authoritarianism of the government in, squashing our rights and chilling our speech. Just the fact that the police showed up at her door on a Sunday to talk to her potentially has a chilling effect on what she might say next time, because she doesn't want the police to come. Oh my God, her neighbors are going to know she was investigated by the police. Why were the police at your door? Why were the police at your door, Allison? So the word needs to get out that this stuff is happening. The story goes roughly like this. A year ago, just as anti-Israeli demonstrations were roiling Britain's streets, routinely spilling into the sulfurous anti-Semitism and even flagrant celebration of Hamas, Pearson tweeted the following. Oh, so she found out what she tweeted because they didn't tell her. How dare they, she said, tagging London's Metropolitan Police, invited to pose for a photo with lovely, peaceful British friends of Israel on Saturday. Police refused. Look at this lot smiling with the Jew haters. She was commenting on a photo tweeted by another account depicting police officers posing with protesters who were holding up the flag of Pakistan, Tehreek-e-Insaf. Sorry if I got that wrong. I don't have a good Pakistani accent. The Pakistani political party founded by the cricketer turned prime minister Imran Khan. Pearson deleted it soon after. The image, as it turns out, was taken months before all those post-7 October demonstrations began. And in Manchester, not London, they weren't the hate marchers she thought they were. She seemingly didn't look too closely at the flag either, which alongside an Islamic crescent moon and star had Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf clearly printed on it. So the woman was investigated by police for just reposting a tweet and saying, how dare they, talking about the Metropolitan Police, because she tagged the Metropolitan Police, and being invited to pose for a photo with lovely, peaceful British friends of Israel. Look at this lot with the Jew haters. I personally don't know how that's a crime, but I'm not. As I said, I'm not a solicitor. I'm not expert in British or American law by any stretch. But that just looks like somebody doing what I'm doing. I'm commenting on somebody else's work. Okay, but it appears that may be a crime in the UK. Let's learn more. It was by any fair estimation a clumsy mistake made on a platform that encourages users to react first and questions later. You need to be a card-carrying mind reader to confidently insist she actually trying to say all Muslims or Pakistanis are anti-Semites, as some shamelessly have. But still, it was enough to launch a hate speech investigation which occupied our supposedly overworked bobbies for more than a year. Wow. The British police spent a year on this. Don't they have like muggers and bank robbers and rapists and things to catch? But they've got time to go after people for mean tweets. Now, fair enough, this tweet was misinformation. She was wrong about it, and when she realized it was wrong, she deleted it. But a year? And even if it is misinformation, that can get you to jail. If I was in the UK, I'd be in the jail right now. There's no doubt about it. Anyway, let's move on. Someone identified by The Guardian as a former public servant with training in criminal law reported it. I think her name was probably Karen, but I digress. The complaint then pinged around various police forces as England's finest tried to work out what speech law, if any, may have been broken. Regrettably, there are a lot to choose from. It's times like this I am so happy that I live in America, where there's this little thing called the First Amendment that protects people's basic right to say what they feel. Right or wrong. I say a lot of stupid stuff. Hey, look at Trump. We just elected a man who says lots of crazy things. So thank goodness for the First Amendment. The tweet was first reported to the Metropolitan Police, who investigated as a potential breach of the Malicious Communications Act. It was passed on to the Sussex police for some reason, who considered marking it down to a non-crime hate incident. More on that later. Okay, non-crime hate incident. See, for me, again, I'm not a police officer and I'm not a solicitor, but if it's a non-crime, why are the police even looking at it? As soon as they decide it's a non-crime, by definition, isn't the police's job to catch criminals? Okay, maybe I've been watching too much of the Sweeney. I don't know. Maybe this is more like the Thin Blue Line. But anyway, I'll move on again. Having finally worked out that Pearson lives in Essex, not Sussex, it is actually a different place, the cops then handed the case over to the Essex police, who decided the tweet represented a possible public order offense. Public order? Tweeting from your house or from your computer is in public? Ron White says a lot of good things about in public that are pretty funny, but I think he should hear about this. I bet he would really say some good jokes about it. But anyway, namely, spreading material likely or intended to cause racial hatred, a far more serious crime than previously considered. Carrying on like a Stalinist version of the Keystone Cops, Essex police not only sent those two officers around on Remembrance Sunday, they also set up a so-called gold group, typically used to coordinate a police response to major incidents like terror attacks. All this over a year-old tweet already deleted. So in the UK, again, you know, there, instead of having Inspector Morse, out there, catching the baddies around, the Oxford area, in Sussex, they're looking for people spreading material likely or intended to cause racial hatred. So, if I understand this right, to be a crime in the UK, it seems like you don't have to actually prove there was any actual physical harm done to anyone in any way. You just have to incite hatred. And it just has to be likely or intended. You don't actually have to incite hatred. You just have to prove that it was likely or intended. I think we go back to that mind reader comment. I don't know, how you can tell that what somebody did was likely or intended. That is such a vague standard for a crime. But again, I'm not a lawyer, but okay. I would definitely be in jail. Essex police have been so thoroughly humiliated by this that there is now going to be an independent review into their handling of the case. Good. It sounds like the crazies have been reined in. And again, it's really unfortunate that this had to happen, but it's really because Miss Pearson is a journalist with a major newspaper behind her, able to publicize just the utter nonsense of this. It's just fascinating me. Indeed, for all the welcome shock the Pearson case has sparked in the anti-woke world, particularly among our American cousins. I guess that would be me. Elon Musk Natch has been spitting feathers about it. It won't have come to a surprise to those that have been paying attention. Britain has been suddenly turned into a dictatorship by newly elected Prime Minister Keir Starmer, as some of the more wild eyed voices on X might have you believe. But we have been engaged in decades long, deeply illiberal experiment in policing hate speech, which is now making international laughingstock. Yeah, I personally have always been against kind of hate speech laws because who decides what's hate speech? And you know what? If somebody is saying offensive speech, whatever that would be, really we should be combating it with better speech. I say that all the time. If we shut down the dialogue, people just go underground and don't talk. It's sort of like in America where Trump did win the election in America in 2024. And unless you've been under a rock, that shouldn't be a spoiler. And all the pollsters and all the liberals in America were completely shocked by this. They had no clue. And I think they had no clue because it's been years of telling Trump supporters and conservatives alike that they're bad people and they're stupid and they're uneducated. That everyone. So you know what? You just don't talk to people about being a Trump supporter, and that's what happens. And that's what happens here. If you don't engage with speech with the other side, things just sit there and quietly bubble, and then boom, one day you've got Trump as president. Who knew? And so you're really much better off talking these things through and not immediately jump into the conclusion that the other side are all bad people because they're not. They're just people and they have opinions. And I think they have a right to that opinion. And you might not like that opinion, but who are you to tell them they can't say or think what they're saying or thinking? I think everyone should say what they like, and then you deal with the consequences of what you said. But I don't think it should be criminal. It's just speech. I'm sorry, what happened to sticks and stones? Ben Shapiro, he's famous for saying the facts don't care about your feelings. When did offense and feelings turn into actual crimes that you would call the police for? So, the offense of inciting racial hatred of which Pearson was accused was first created in Britain in 1965 with the passage of the Race Relations Act. That really should go. I'm sorry if that's what they're using to base this on. We don't need that law. This notion that it was the role of the state to define and police hatred, that in essence, censorship was our path to racial harmony. Censorship is never the path to racial harmony. So this was enshrined into law by elite culture. Now, I made the comment we don't need that law. Just for full disclosure, I live in America, but I am an actual Scottish citizen. I have to say Scottish because my mom would not be pleased if I said I was a UK citizen. So that's why, I think I can definitely have an opinion on it. But you know what? Even my fully American cousins can have an opinion on this. Anyone can have an opinion. You might be talking pish, but you can have everyone's can have their opinion. This sits in stark contrast with the United States. It was the 1960s, amid the Civil Rights Revolution, the bottom-up demand for Black Americans for their rights that the expansive free speech protections Americans now enjoy were won. Until then, the First Amendment had essentially been a dead letter gifted by the founders, never enforced in practices. I don't know. I'm not a constitutional historian, so I can't tell you if free speech was a big topic back in the day, but I have a sense they're probably right. I think probably prior to the civil rights era in America, nobody really even thought about this because people did say what they liked and suffered the consequences, and that was okay. But then during the civil rights era, people's rights were taken away, so it came back into focus. The project of speech policing and thought control was embraced enthusiastic by Tony Blair's government in 2006, and then the new Labor government passed the Racial and Religious Hatred Act, introducing the offense of incitement to religious hatred. Were it not for a successful campaign to rein in that legislation led by comedian Rowan Atkinson, it would have been criminalized abusive or insulting language about religion too. Oh yeah, so it is the thin blue line. So even hey, I'm in good company. It sounds like even the Blackadder and Mr. Bean are a little snarky about this. Blackadder's famous for being snarky. So right, I may go watch. I may go look up what Rowan had to say about this, and it sounds like I would like it. I did think Blackadder 4 was the best, by the way, going over the top. The other ones, especially the first two seasons, not so much. I don't know how he managed to keep getting renewed, but the third and fourth seasons were brilliant, no doubt. But arguably, Blair's more consequential contribution to hate speech legislation came with the Communications Act in 2003 under Section 127 of the law. It was illegal to send by means of public electronic communications network a message or other matter that is grossly offensive. So they've translated that into mean tweets are grossly offensive, and so we're going to throw you in jail for it. That's what I think they tried to do to Allison Pearson. Wow. While this was an update of a pre-existing telecommunications fence, it made it a match fit for the digital age. Indeed, the combination of Britain's already repressive speech laws and dawn of social media era proved a disastrous mix, particularly for the nation's more obnoxious young people. In the early 2010s, there were a slew of cases in which teenagers and university students were sent to prison for saying stupid, outrageous, and downright despicable things on social media, often while drunk. Okay, so you can go to jail for drunk dialing, or drunk speech. Oh my God. It's worse than I thought. So some examples. In 2012, Swansea student Liam Stacey was convicted of a racially aggravated public order offense over racist tweets he posted after Bolton Wanderers footballer Fabrice Muamba collapsed from a heart attack during a match. He got 56 days in prison for a racist tweet. Wow. That same year, teenager Matthew Woods was jailed for 3 months for a string of grossly offensive Facebook posts about missing young girls, April Jones and Madeline McCann, while inebriated at a friend's house. Hey, yeah, it's drunk dialing, but it's on Facebook. Woods began his tirade by copying and pasting and sharing sick jokes. So he was just posting stuff, and then he got just carried away, drunk posting one night and commenting. Next thing you know, he was in jail for 3 months for Facebook posts. You heard it, for Facebook posts. There was also Jake Newsom given 6 weeks in prison in 2014 for saying on Facebook he was glad that a Leeds teacher had been murdered by a pupil. Just saying you were happy about that was enough to get him 6 weeks in prison. In the UK, it's actually harder, I think, to get into prison than it is in the US. In the US, we send everybody to jail for the smallest things. But I thought it was harder than this in the UK. All right, I definitely cannot be going back to the UK anytime soon. Sorry, sorry, family. But I'll be getting to jail. It's a good thing. I actually do know a couple of very good lawyers, so they're in my phone book. Some very good solicitors in the Glasgow area, and there was 20-year-old Azhar Ahmed fined £300 in order to do community service for posting again on Facebook that all soldiers should die and go to hell. Not a nice thing to say, but jail or sorry, nope. I don't want to get this wrong. That I don't want to spread misinformation that gets you in jail in the UK. He was fined £300. The investigations, arrests, and even convictions for online speech reached well beyond genuine bigots and trolls. I don't really think bigots and trolls should actually be able to do that. Now I know the laws might be different, but and I guess it's not online, and things might have changed. But doesn't the Orange Walk still walk through parts of Scotland? That's pretty offensive to Catholics. uh, do they go to? Does the Orange Walk go to jail? I guess it's only tweets. It's only tweets. It's okay to like offend people by walking through their town, I guess. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Orange Walk isn't a thing anymore. Please tell me in the comments if the Orange Walk is still a thing. I remember looking out of my nanny's veranda in Pollock Shaw's and seeing the Orange Walk walking past on the street. I'm sure I remember that, but I could be wrong. Telling jokes became a risky business. Famously, Paul Chambers was found guilty in 2010 of sending menacing electronic communication for an obvious joke on Twitter, threatening to blow Robin Hood Airport sky high after he was infuriated to find out that it was closed. Okay, a bomb threat, even in the US, will probably get investigated. And if it was serious enough, there could be criminal consequences. Post 9/11, they did tighten up in the U.S. the terrorist threat kind of laws. So this one actually, even in the U.S., could be legitimate. I'm not sure it should be, but in the U.S. also that one could be a thing. Wow, I wonder if does Chappelle ever play at the Hydro? Because if he does, he better watch out. I think the South Lanarkshire police might be coming looking for him if he shows up. But anyway, I digress. Oh, as the trans issue came into view, okay, now we're going to get into some stuff. It became clear that even mainstream opinions, such as not believing men can become women, could also be rebranded as hateful by increasingly identity authorities. Okay, I'm sure that this is going to, come out. I think J.K. Rowling's is famous for this, for battling, because I think, and I could be wrong. Again, tell me in the comments because I'm not actually reading it here, and I don't want to spread misinformation because I'll get to jail and have to call my solicitor. But I'm pretty sure J.K. Rowling has said men cannot be women. It's impossible, and women are men that are think that they're women. I might be getting this wrong, or men that are dressing up as women have not, lived a woman's experiences. So I think she said things like that, and I think she was reported, but I don't think that she actually got to jail. They tried because the Scottish laws they made them a little stronger, I think, last year, and but that was I think that's a hill she's willing to die on, and she is J.K. Rowling, so she's got a few bob, so she can afford the best solicitors. Anyway, gender critical feminist Kate Scottaw was arrested in 2018 for causing needless anxiety after she persistently called a man he on social media. Okay, if it's a dude and you call him a he, that caused anxiety needlessly, and that was enough for her to be arrested? Oh, it was overturned on appeal. Christian preacher David McConnell similar had to be tried and convicted before the courts realized misgendering isn't actually a crime, not yet at least. So that's good. Not only did those supposedly freedom-loving conservatives do nothing during their 14 years in power to repeal the censorious, did I say that right? That's a good word, legislation, they actually made things worse. They passed the Online Safety Act, which incentivizes big tech firms to censor speech and introduce new updated communications offenses. Then there's the rise of non-crime hate incidents, a deeply sinister practice that policing bodies developed largely by themselves. For decades, police have been investigating and recording supposedly hateful incidents, even if they do not rise to the threshold of a criminal offense. That's just crazy. Again, like I said earlier, police should be investigating crime. They shouldn't be, once they decide it's not a criminal offense, it's like, move along, there's nothing to see here. Mind the gap. Some classics of the genre: a man who believed he was getting funny looks on the bus made a report, which was investigated. Just making a funny look can get the police to investigate you. Or another who felt he received an aggressive haircut because he speaks Russian. So getting an aggressive haircut is a crime in the UK if you do it to a Russian? I mean, the absurdity, the absurdity. So I'm going to skip down to the end. Despite their less than progressive reputation, oh yeah, like I said, I've seen the Sweeney. The police have proven themselves no more impervious to the great awakening to the rise of identity politics than any other wing of the state. If anything, this ideology has proven particularly irresistible to the institution that is desperate to be seen to atone for its past wrongs. In truth, it has only replaced the old racial animus with the new racial paternalism. Police officers today seem to think that black and brown Brits want to be protected from being offended, as opposed to being robbed or stabbed. Yeah, I think they should catch more robbers or stabbers personally, but that's just me. I don't know how the police can police offensive speech because it's very subjective. What's offensive? Everyone has a different standard. That the police's failure to properly investigate the racist murder of Stephen Lawrence is now being used to justify this crusade against hurtful words is perverse when you think about it for 5 seconds. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Stephen Lawrence, whatever it was. I'm sure it was horrible, but it sounds like because of that case, the pendulum has swung too far, and the police, like other parts of the government, the U.S. included, the Biden government was famous for this. It's all about protecting people's feelings. No, I'm a believer in what Ben Shapiro says. The facts don't care about your feelings. Let's throw people in jail for doing real harm to other people. And I'm sorry, but I grew up with sticks and stones. I know that's not a millennial or a Generation Z concept where everyone got trophies for participation, but words hurt sometimes, and you just need to, put on your big boy pants and get out there and combat those hurtful words with better words. Our liberties then aren't being trampled by some would-be strongman. Yeah, Keir Starmer today, but he's just today's strongman. As we saw earlier, I think in this article, the conservatives, happily went along with this too when the conservatives had power. So this isn't a purely liberal thing. I think liberal governments have instituted more of these sorts of policies, but the real problem is these are authoritarian policies. And when conservative governments come in, they're very happy to use them too. They're being trampled on by a self-loathing establishment. Yeah, I get it. Police are trying to clean up their act. They've been seen as racist and misogynist for so long that they want to do better. But I think they've gone too far. Censoring in pursuit of purpose, moral authority, redemption. But when you have journalists being visited by police because of what they have written, you see the new authoritarianism can be alarmingly like the old if you allow it to take root. So I live in America. Thank God for the First Amendment, which gives Americans a right to free speech. You have to, in America, say some really bad things, and it really has to be things that lead to kind of physical harm to really be censured criminally for your speech. But speech does have consequences. People get canceled all the time. They tried to cancel Joe Rogan because he didn't agree with Biden as being the president. He was a Bernie bro. And they tried to cancel him during COVID because he used ivermectin, God forbid. And actually, now there's been studies that say ivermectin can actually help. But if you said that during COVID, you got deplatformed, and it was the government working with big tech that deplatformed you. But at least in America, you didn't actually go to jail. We didn't quite get that far when the authoritarian tendencies of the government, peeked its head out. But in Britain, I'm really hoping that this story about Miss Pearson pushes the government and the people in the direction of freedom instead of the direction of authoritarianism. We need to get back to a place where people can have a free exchange of ideas, and people should be able to say whatever they like, you know, again, as long as it's not physically hurting somebody. And if it offends somebody, so be it. That person can either choose not to listen, which is what a lot of people do, and they cancel them and go away, or they can choose to engage and combat that speech with what they consider better speech. That's the way to do it. Let's get talking again. Let's stop the censorship.